Well, we've all heard the jokes about Regina, whether it's celebrities from other countries who get a kick out of the word or folks in other parts of Canada who have never visited and never plan to. I grew up in Regina. It's where my parents live, and I know that it can be a wonderful place to grow up and to build a life. But it can also be pretty draining having to constantly defend the city you're from. So when a woman who grew up in Regina and now lives in Calgary wrote a point of view piece for CBC Saskatchewan about how annoying it is for her to constantly have to hear what a whole Regina is, we thought it was worth talking about. So today on Blue Sky, we'll hear from some high-profile Regina folks who will tell us why they choose to live and work in the Queen City. And we'll dig into Regina's self-esteem and identity issues. We'd love to hear from you, too. If you're from Regina, how do you respond when people make fun of your home? You can call 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. Our colleague, Jenny Whitfield, hit the streets to ask people in the Queen City about their thoughts on how people perceive Regina.
In the rest of Canada, I think Regina is kind of looked down on a little bit as we're, a little bit country, a little bit redneck. But when I'm international, I find, especially in South America, Central America, they're laughing a lot just at how we pronounce it. So they're giggling a lot. And then I just had a friend in Costa Rica point out to me that every time they Google Regina and Saskatchewan, they're getting missing and murdered Indigenous women come up. And he asked me, he said, what's going on there? He was really, really upset about that. And I thought that was a really good takeaway.
What's it do to you to hear other people's perceptions of that sort of thing?
What does it do to me? I think it makes me glad in a way that it's getting out there, that people know about it, but it makes me sad that that's what we're known for,
What about that perception of us being redneck or country or people laughing?
Yeah, people are laughing. That makes me embarrassed of ourselves here.
People actually they're making fun of the Regina because of the words that the other something reflected to the women. That's they said most of the time. Oh, are you really from Regina? And it's called, I don't want to say the words, but I love Regina because this is the way I have my future here. I start out from Calgary, but I moved here in Regina, and then I get my PR here. So,
what do you say when people are maybe have some ignorant attitudes, or how does that make you feel if people say, "Oh, you're from Regina"?
Yeah, something like that. But I don't care because I'm here because I have a very good job here. So if they said, "Oh, you're from Regina," but for me, for my perception, I love Regina because I start from Regina. My future here already have.
I've never heard anybody say anything negative. I shouldn't say that. I guess I have once in a while. I mean, I've heard people say something negative, but not very often.
What's your own feelings about the place that you live?
I think it's an okay place to live.
People say you are not from developed city. I said, maybe you are from developed city, but I like the Regina the most because I have went to BC, Alberta, Brampton, Ontario, everywhere, but I like the Regina the most because I like the calmest city ever.
What does it do to you? What does it feel like when people put down where you're from when you did all this traveling?
When they say you are not from developed city, I feel very embarrassing, but it's okay. It's okay for me. But I like the Regina.
I've lived here all my life, and I think I've spent most of my life trying to get away from here. And I keep ending up coming back, so there's a reason for it. Yeah.
Interesting. What do you think that reason is?
I don't know. I don't know what it is. I've spent most of my life traveling and trying to get away from here, and I just keep ending up back here.
It's the water.
It's the water. This is my hood.
If you have thoughts on what you just heard, we'd love to hear it today. 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. Now, our guests today come from all different walks of life, but one thing they have in common, they choose to make Regina home. Wes Cates was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, and moved to Regina in 2007 to play for the Riders. When he retired from football in 2012, Wes chose to stay in Regina. He now works at Sask Power and does Rider commentary on various platforms. That is what he'll be doing later today. But first, he's made time to join us in our Regina studio. Wes Cates, welcome to Blue Sky.
Hey, Alicia. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. And then joining him in studio in Regina is artist Heather Klein. Her work often draws inspiration from this place she calls home. If you ever need a reminder of how beautiful Saskatchewan is, look at Heather Klein's work. Heather, welcome to Blue Sky.
Thanks very much.
It's great to have you. And then joining us on Google Meets is former Mayor of Regina, Pat Fiacco. Fiacco was mayor from 2000 until 2012, and during that time, he was responsible for the I Love Regina campaign, designed to instill a sense of pride in the city. That iconic logo was removed from in front of City Hall just a couple of years ago. And since leaving politics, Fiacco has held many jobs, including CEO of Tourism Saskatchewan. Pat Fiacco, welcome back to Blue Sky.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for talking about this very, very important topic.
It is an important topic. I know you're traveling right now, Mr. Fiacco, but oh my goodness, to just say that again, I Love Regina, that campaign, I was living in Regina at the time. That was a big thing. And so I know we've got a lot to talk about with you and the other two guests as well. Now, you all heard the tape there from people who live in Regina, and I'm curious just about how you answer that same question. When you talk to people who don't live in Regina, what kind of perceptions do they have about the place? Heather, maybe I'll start with you.
I think that from a cultural community perspective, a lot of people sort of see it as unimportant or not relevant maybe to the national scene, which I think is untrue, but I think that's kind of the perception. I had a funny story. I had a friend who went to a big design fair in Toronto, and somebody asked her where she was from, and she said Lumsden, Regina area, and they were like, "Are you all right?" Like it was some kind of danger zone. So, yeah, it's an interesting thing why that perception is out there.
You know, people will say to me when I tell them, "Oh, I'm born and raised in Regina." "Oh, that's too bad." And I'm like, "What?" Okay, whatever. Wes, what do people say to you when you tell them that this is the place that you're choosing to be?
Well, yeah, they're surprised. I guess it's a small town, or it's small town feel. So people are always surprised, considering I'm from a bigger city, Columbus, Ohio, and they're surprised that I didn't go back home. But I always say, like, Regina showed me love. There's plenty to do here. People complain about it being flat. I'm from Ohio. It's flat in Ohio, too. It's Ohio Valley. So I'm like, hey, I'd rather that than the treacherous mountains and all that type of stuff. The weather seems to be more mild in regions like this, and I just don't get it. It's convenient. It's a good city. I live on the edge of town, literally back of Farmers Field. I can drive to my office, be at my desk in 30 minutes from the edge of town. Everything, like, the city's grown. Mayor Pat Fiacco, Premier Brad Wall, when he was in office, they did a great job just injecting the community with, you know, some vibrance, and like, this city has grown a ton since they were the leaders of the province and of the city, and I think it's a great place to stay now. So when people kind of joke, I don't get a ton of jokes about it. When people do joke about it, I'm like, the conveniences we enjoy much more outweigh all the things you can get into. I mean, when you go about your day-to-day life, how often are you really running around the city, going out to eat? There's plenty of great restaurants and things to do here as well.
Yeah. How do you feel when you look out at the landscape, to know that you're on the edge of town and that's what you get to see every day? How does that make you feel?
Oh, I love it. I'm on my deck. I see the sunrise because my house is south facing. So when I'm on the north side of my house, see the sunrise, see the sunset, get to watch the crop behind me grow, and kind of feel like I have my own little oasis, even though my neighbors are 8 feet away from me on the sides, right? But yeah, it's great, and you get that more. I don't know. You can get to parks and get out into nature a little easier, and you know, get to things that are healthy for you, as opposed to being in like a concrete jungle, as people say, right? So I think those type of amenities are kind of slept on, and a big part of what make people enjoy life and have longevity.
Mm-hmm. Pat Fiacco, what have you heard over the years when it comes to Regina? What kind of comments have you heard?
Well, it's just like we've heard in the past. Once in a while, people want to make fun of the name of the city. There'll be comments. What is there to do in the city? I was telling a story earlier about a situation. I was on a plane and coming back from Toronto, and there was two people having a conversation behind me, and one person was from Regina and the other one was from Toronto. Of course, they started talking, and he asked, Jeff from Regina asked him, where are you from? He's out of Toronto. I said, oh. So what are you coming to Regina for? He said, so I'm speaking at a conference. He goes, oh, it's bad you have to come to Regina to do that. And I was mayor at the time, and I was furious.
Of course.
Sat up and turned around, and I said, excuse me? And, of course, explained to the gentleman from Toronto that he can have an absolutely wonderful time with great hospitality from Regina people. I made some recommendations in regards to restaurants and some site issues while he's in Regina involved with them. And then I told the gentleman from Regina that he should be ashamed of himself and that his job is to promote our community, an ambassador.
To promote the community, yeah.
The I Love Regina campaign was all about that. I mean, if you can't feel good about your own city, how do you expect other people to feel good about it?
Yeah.
And I think that did it for a lot of people. And you got to keep in mind too that once they find out who I am, they kind of be careful about saying anything negative. But once in a while, it comes out, and I make no apologies for defending our community because Canada is the greatest city in this country.
I have so many questions for you, but you know what? The connection isn't great. We've got you on Google Meet, so I can see your face, but we might try calling you on the phone just because that might give us a bit of a better reception with you. So I'm saving my questions for a bit, okay? So you can hang up that call. We'll call you back. I'll ask Heather Klein about your choice. You've chosen Regina because you're from Saskatoon, and so what went into that decision? Why'd you pick Regina?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I was lured by love. I ended up marrying a fellow who is long established in Regina, and at first, I was a little coming from Saskatoon. There's this weird thing where Saskatoonians are kind of competitive with Regina, but Regina is oblivious to this. So,
yes.
At first I was always kind of like, Saskatoon, I'm from Saskatoon. And I think what happened was, number one, the art community in Regina is exceptional. Later today I'm going to an opening, and it's a summer show at my gallery at Slate Fine Art. And my work's going to be up on the walls with a whole group of artists that either live and work in Regina or are affiliated with Regina, spent time in Regina, and they're world class, they're world renowned. And for me, that's just such a privilege. And, it's a really rich community. There's a history here of people being cultural workers and culturally engaged. And there's something about it being small enough that people can really dig in and experiment and try out what they want to try out with not sort of the weight of judgment that you get in a larger center. Mm-hmm. And I think that's caused a lot of different unique things to happen in Regina in both the visual arts community and in the broader music community, the theater community. There's all these little treasures, all these little moments of people having a creative aha and following through on it because they can, because it's doable.
I don't doubt anything that you're saying, but I want to challenge you just a little bit because there are differences between the two cities, and I feel like I can speak fairly a little bit because I do love them both, but there are differences between Saskatoon and Regina. And I know we've got Pat Fiacco back listening because I want him to hear this, but the differences are related to a certain level of vibrancy. You go downtown in Saskatoon, and restaurants are full and people are walking on the streets. There's just a lot of energy. Yes, we have a river, but River Landing is animated with salsa dancing and just tons of people out. So what is different about Regina and Saskatoon or maybe other cities that people might have that perception because they've been and they're like, well, it's just not quite as happening as another place? I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
I think it's quietly contained. I think that there's there's an opportunity for people to dig in deep and really explore things in their smaller groups. Like there's so many art guilds and there's printmaking collectives and there's theater groups, and people, maybe there's not the big splashy events all the time, but there's this quiet hum of activity that energizes the creative people of the city to continue pursuing their interests and continue working on what they're working on. And, you could say that that's happening in other cities too, but I just think that it's very interesting to me, like, for example, there's an event that happens every work. New Dance Horizons does the Secret Garden Tour. Mm-hmm. And people go and they see all these spectacular little creative enterprises that people are doing in their backyards. And it's like, so maybe there's not the big splashiness of, I love the river. I love that riverbank culture in like the jazz festival in Saskatoon. But I think there's all these people quietly working away and actively being involved in creative enterprise.
I love that description, a quiet hum. Pat Fiacco, what are your thoughts on that? Because you were in a position of power for a long time. And yes, I understand that what you're saying, that we need to have pride in place and we need to be the first ones to say, like, hey, we love it here. You should love it too. But were all the ingredients there to make Regina the type of city that people want to go to and visit?
Well, the answer is yes. And I think it'd be really boring if every city was the same. I think, Heather, you described it perfectly. I think it's different, and there's nothing wrong with that different type of vibrancy. We our downtown, of course, just like every downtown post-COVID, it suffered, and it's slowly starting to make its way back. Our downtown square with salsa dancing, with the farmers market. There's some construction being done there, but, in about a year from now, all of that will be completed, and we're going to have that activity. The Globe Theatre downtown reopening. You have events like we had at the beginning or at the end of the month, end of May, Mosaic. You've got 18 different cultures celebrating the diversity of our great community with record crowds. I think there's nothing wrong with having different types of vibes, but it's like anything. If you want to point negative things out in any community, you're going to do that. I mean, if I could read any newspaper from Vancouver all the way to Newfoundland, Labrador, I'm going to read negative stories. I can sit in a coffee shop and hear the exact same stories, negative stories within their respective communities. And I think it's easy to take negative shots at the community. I don't think it's necessary. I think what you should do is be talking about how great your community is. And I encourage all our listeners to really, really take an inventory of what we have in our community. You've got neighbors that you can talk to. In those larger centers, they don't even know who their neighbors are. 15 to 20 minutes to get anywhere you want. If you want to go to your kid's ball game, if you want to go home for lunch, these bigger centers, it's impossible to do that. Affordability, of course, we know that inflation is causing a problem everywhere, but for the most part, we're pretty affordable city to live in. Both of our communities, Regina and Saskatchewan, our sporting activity, it's full. I mean, our kids get to play little toddlers. Us old guys still get to play. So I just think that it's okay to maybe poke fun at each other once in a while. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of fun, but ultimately, I choose to live in Regina for a reason. Mm-hmm. Someone else chooses to live in Saskatoon or Calgary for a reason, and I'm not going to knock them for that. For me, just like as Wes said earlier, the city has everything that for me I've raised a family here. My parents moved here back in 1957 from Italy with nothing, and they were able to raise 3 kids, and my God, one of them became the mayor of Regina. The fact of the matter is that I think Saskatchewan's a great province. I think all of our communities in Saskatchewan are absolutely amazing. The hospitality is incredible. I just wish there's no need to be knocking any other community, because the benefits are there for the individual that are living there. They know why they're living there.
We have more to talk about because I want to ask each of you about, how important it is for a city to have swagger. And I think really tapping into what you were trying to get at, Pat Fiacco, with the I Love Regina campaign. So don't go anywhere. We've got more questions and this conversation will continue. I just want to share one email from Stephen, who writes, cities tend to either be great places to visit, but not so great to live in, or great places to live in, but not so great to visit. Toronto fits in the first category. Regina fits into the second. Regina is a fantastic place to live. You can email us to bluesky@cbc.ca, or you can call us 1-800-716-2221. I'm Lisa Grabinski. This is Blue Sky on CBC Radio 1. We are talking about Regina. This all stems from a person who wrote a point of view piece for us here at CBC Saskatchewan, talking about how she's tired of hearing people call Regina a hole and how she really tries to challenge that idea. And we thought it was such a great opportunity to talk about the city and how people feel about having to defend Regina. And so we've got some high-profile guests with us today on the show. We've been talking to Pat Fiacco, former mayor of Regina, Heather Klein, who's a Regina artist, and Wes Cates, a former Rough Rider. And in a moment, we're going to hear from Zarka Nawaz, who's done a whole TV show based in Regina. But Wes, before we move on to that, I just want to put that same question to you. You heard Heather and Pat really say some, they've convinced me.
Yeah.
That, like, cities are different, and that's fine. But I do wonder if some of the criticism, like how you engage with that. Like, one thing that I'm thinking about, you moved from Calgary, so obviously that's a bigger city, and you would have had access to a C train. Regina can be difficult to park and hit up a few different spots. Like I feel like it's a real place where you tend to need a vehicle. That's just one thing I'm thinking about. But I'm wondering how you engage with some of the folks that may challenge what Regina has to offer.
Yeah, well, I have to be honest. The first time I ever came to Regina, I was playing with the stamps. We were descending into town, and I looked out the window. I had a window seat. I looked out the window, and I turned to the guy in the aisle seat, and I was like, there's a team here? I was like, this place looks small. But then I got on the field, and the vibe it was at Taylor Field. The vibe in the stands, I was like, this is football. I haven't felt this since I've been in the CFL. This is football. I'm from Ohio, one of the top football states in the country. And to feel that, I was like, yeah, this is a place I would love to play, because they get it. They know how to get excited. Everybody rallies around each other in Saskatchewan, especially in Regina. There's something about, like, everybody just wanting to support those community building events that you get in Regina that you don't really get in any of the other provinces, at least the experiences that I've had. And yeah, it's a situation where, like, this community embraced me. I mean, obviously we did a lot of winning while I was here.
I was just going to say, only if you're winning. It might change if you're not.
There wasn't a ton of winning that happened on the previous years before I got on the team. But, it was just, I guess I was lucky in that sense that I was able to become a part of a team that was on the upturn, and we won a Grey Cup. And then once I retired, I just had that name and kind of that association with success, and then started just that small town, that small city feel. I was able to network. You make a lot of acquaintances. I was able to network, get a good job, and then it always
probably helped that you were a
snowballed.
rider.
Yeah.
Do you think you would have had the same experience though if you weren't a Rough Rider?
I mean, I feel like because in Saskatchewan, it's about who you're related to, who you know. Like, a lot of business meetings, it's like, oh, you work over here, or you're from this town. Well, I have a brother-in-law that lives. Oh yeah, I know. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how networking and connections get done. And I like that as well about Regina and Saskatchewan, right? So there's that personalness that you don't get in a lot of cities that you get here, and always the convenience. I just heard a study that Apparently, groceries are expensive in Saskatchewan, but everything else is cheap. So I'm good. I'm good with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's find out what Zarka Nawaz has to say. So Zarka is an award-winning film and television producer and author. She's built a career out of celebrating the place where she is from, Saskatchewan. She followed the success of Little Mosque on the Prairie with a recent series, Zarka, and it's set in Regina.
Pinky Perviz is coming to Regina!
Pinky's a big internet star.
And everything she picks goes viral.
I need someone to get me close to her.
Whatever you're thinking, please stop thinking it. You're about to send women's rights back decades.
Centuries.
That's from season 2 of Zarka, a comedy starring Zarka Nawaz, and it is set in Regina. I caught up with Zarka earlier, and I started by asking her what kind of reaction she usually gets when she tells people she is from Regina.
They usually don't know where it is. And then I have to say, well, then you have to give them reference points. Like, we're above like North Dakota, Montana, like in that area in the center of the country, we're the province where most of the food in the world can come from, like the wheat and canola and the pulses. And then they sort of understand, they get an idea what a prairie province is. So you have to do a little bit of explaining in geography, but eventually they get it.
But did they ever come back with a few negative comments? I've heard them. I've traveled. I know what people say about Regina. So be honest. What do they really say about you once they figure out the location that you're talking about?
Well, I think they wonder why I'm not living in LA or Toronto. And then I tell them, well, I actually grew up in Toronto. So I know everything about Toronto and I've been there, seen it, done it. So I've got it out of my system and I know exactly what that lifestyle is like. And so I've lived half my life in Toronto and the other half in Saskatchewan. So I can pretty much answer people when they say, wouldn't you rather be in Toronto? I'm like, well, actually, I lived, 26 years there and no. I would not like to live half my life stuck on the 401 like I used to when I lived there, or, be crowded in a GO train, or, like it's just like, and people acknowledge that when I start to talk to them about that. I said, you have to admit that a rather large percentage of your life is stuck in traffic and in a jam somewhere, and I don't miss that at all.
So in a way, you are defending the fact that you are choosing Regina, right?
And it's not much of a defense because they suddenly have to admit all the things I'm saying is true, right? Because they suddenly start to say, yeah, living in Toronto isn't that great. We have this issue, that issue. And I'm like, well, I don't deal with that anymore since I left. And I'm so glad. And so I find it's not much of a defense. Like, I say, if I really want to see all your, big shiny things, I can just fly there and look at them, but I don't have to have the lifestyle in order to see those things, because that's not a really great lifestyle. And I've never had anyone turn around and say, you're right. Like, I prefer living, on a highway for half of my life. So,
part of the reason we wanted to invite you on the show today is because you are a high profile person who lives in Regina. And we wanted to ask a series of high profile people what they say when people call Regina a hole.
I always challenge them and I say, well, tell me how great your life is and what you're doing on your weekends. I mean, like, I get to see my family, I get to see my friends, I get to see people all the time. I have a very vibrant social life. I have a community. I'm very well connected. I have an incredible, like when I want to relax and rest on the weekends or even after work, like if we finish work at 5:00, we're home 10 minutes later and we have another 5 hours to relax and do things. They have nothing to say to that, right? Because their 5 hours is spent trying to get home. And I don't really have to do a lot of defending because the lifestyle itself defends itself, and the richness of the life, defends itself. And I find that people can't really come back and compete with that. It's uncompetable. And I mean, you can say you live in a big city, but big cities have inherent baked in challenges that places like Regina don't. And sometimes I tell them, I honestly say, I'd rather you not come and live here because we'd rather keep our province a secret, because we want to keep the type of lifestyle that we have going. Because if we suddenly blow up to a big place, it will also disappear. And so I always say to them, you know what, stay where you are, because we're actually happy with how things are going here. So we're kind of like underrated, but we kind of like to keep ourselves a secret, because if too many people find out, we'll lose what we have. So And then I kind of, you frame it that way, and they're kind of like start to wonder, like, what's happening? What's this place that she doesn't really want us to come to because she's worried it'll be ruined by our presence. So I always frame it like that because I truly do believe that,
Yeah.
that if too many people discover us, we might lose what we have. So I kind of feel like we shouldn't like worry too much also, because all that worrying might get us what we don't want, because there's a special, I feel like there's like a critical mass, and we have it where you can have this, you can have the amenities of of a capital city, but you can also have the things that big cities don't have, which is a lifestyle, you know we're not
Commute. A
a
long commute. Ugh.
commute is unbelievable. And that gives us the biggest gift of all, which is time. We have time, and with that time we are able to do so much, and we have so much community, and everyone, and I was talking to my kids, and they all say the same thing to me, right? Like, you can develop this incredible community no matter what career you're in. You can thrive in it, you can grow faster, you can be promoted faster, and you can get to places where you couldn't get to if you were in a bigger city, because you have more community support, and that isn't available in bigger places. I mean, I've had friends in filmmaking that I've had to help because they're like, we can't, you know, get the help that we need. And then, and I say, well, here, my sound guy can help you out, or my graphic artist can help you out. And they're able to get the help here that they can't get in Toronto because everyone is so overrun and overwhelmed and so busy. And so I feel like we shouldn't underrate ourselves for what we have and the things that we can achieve in our careers when we're with our family. And, like, I would gander that there's probably less depression and social anxiety in a place like Regina, because those things also come from being disconnected to community. Like, there's less loneliness here, and that leads to, a lot of mental health issues. And I feel like we deal with that better because we have that social cohesiveness that you lose in a bigger center. So I think those are worth more than being able to, live in a bigger place and say, oh, I can see this shiny museum whenever I want to. There are bigger and more important issues in terms of, the quality of life of a human being.
I hear everything that you're saying, Zarka, but now you've taken it to the next level by having this TV show that is set in Regina. And I'm not lying when I say I find that thrilling, right? Anytime there's a reference to where we live, I just think that's really special because we're not a place that's talked about a lot. Like, you expect TV shows to be based in the bigger centers and maybe not a place like Regina. Why was that important for you to do?
You know what? The support was incredible. Like, I can say to any, a hotel or restaurant, like, I want to shoot a series here, and they get so excited. They're not burnt out from, the way Vancouver is. They're like, yeah, we would love to help you. We'd love to be part of it. And we'll do anything you need. And, I went to, we shot in the Willow, we shot in Wascana Park, we shot in all these locations. And people gave us their homes. We would just walk into a beautiful home and go, hey, can we borrow your home? And they're like, yes. We'll just leave. I mean, I don't think anyone would be able to do that quickly. You can pull together, a crew and people. Like, you need a whole village to make a series, and you need a lot of people, a lot of cooperation, and it can happen like at lightning speed in the city. And that's exactly what happened when I made this series. I was able to get restaurants and hotels and like landmarks to agree to let me shoot. And everyone was happy about it and cooperative and enjoyed it and was thrilled. And the attitude, like, I've watched my friends shoot in Toronto, and they could never have done what I can do in this province.
Do you think Regina has a confidence problem, though? Because, again, getting back to the whole start of this is, that we hear those negative comments about a place like Regina, and that might sort of enter our psyche, right? And so do you think Regina has a confidence issue?
You know what? I embrace the confidence issue. I like embracing the kookiness and being underrated. I love it because I think that's the best thing that can happen for you, because the more people underrate you, the more you can impress them and rise above their expectations. So I say keep the bar low so that we can do all the things that we want to do, because I feel like we don't understand how important it is to live in a place like this and how much you can gain from it. And I think the people who truly understand this are families and parents of children because they see their kids thrive and grow and be part of so many activities and be able to do so much more than a parent, say, in Toronto could do with their child. I mean, I was able to put my kids in so many activities and be able to balance it all because everything was close enough and they had like a greater variety and richness in their lives, from the activities, from the friends they met, from the people that they met, that now, some of them are, getting educations abroad, but then they come back and they say what we had here, the launch pad was unbelievable. Like I couldn't have gotten this launch pad anywhere else. And they value Saskatchewan for what it gives you. So I feel that we as people know that and we can see it. And I think that our children and our families benefit from this, incredibly.
Zarka, so good to talk to you today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Zarka Nawaz, an award-winning television producer and author. You can watch both seasons of her series Zarka, which is set in Regina on CBC Gem. And in case you don't know about CBC Gem, it's a great place to watch everything from sitcoms to documentaries, news, and even sports. And if you're okay with some ads, it is free. I'm Lisa Grabinski. This is Blue Sky. We are talking about Regina and how it's a city many people feel like they have to defend. And we've got a listener on the line who wants to join the conversation. So let's say hello to Egata. Hello, Egata. Welcome to Blue Sky.
Hi. This is a really nice topic. Thank you so much. So I'm not a high-profile person by all means, but I moved to Regina about 7 years ago now, just to work on the Regina Bypass project. And after it finished, I decided to make Regina my permanent home. So I really like it. There's nowhere, compared to Calgary, for example, I don't think I would ever be able to make it from one end of the city to the next in 15 minutes. So that's definitely a positive here. I love the greenery here. There's so many playgrounds and so many little hidden green spaces. There isn't as many buildings. All the houses or all the homes are quite unique here, as opposed to all kind of cookie cutter look alike. What else? I don't like the potholes in the roads.
The potholes.
And I don't like the empty warehouses that just sit empty here. I find that's a really kind of a poor use of space, of empty space. I think that can be utilized a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But one thing that I think Regina has, there's a lot of potential here for infrastructure development, even transit and things like this. So it's kind of like an uncapped uncapped gem, almost a little bit hidden, and maybe just waiting until it really comes to life. But I do like the community. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad you called, Agata. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.
Bye.
Bye. That was Agata joining us in Regina. You can call us too, 1-800-716-2221. You can also email bluesky@cbc.ca. We have 3 people with us on the show today. Heather Klein, a Regina artist, Wes Cates, a former Rough Rider, and Pat Fiacco, former mayor of Regina. I want to ask all 3 of you to pick up on some of the things that Zarka said. So she pointed out, keep the bar low, right? Keep those expectations low. Don't tell too many people we have a special thing. But that idea that it's kind of an underrated city, is that to our Regina's benefit, or would it help to have a bit more swagger? I know what Pat Fiacco is going to say. So Wes Cates, I'll start with you. What do you think? Is there a confidence issue here when it comes to Regina?
Maybe a little. I don't really see it in my personal life, but maybe a little, just because everybody, people talk about the big centers and big cities. So you do want to have a draw to bring in, tourism and people to want to come visit your city. But I think Regina has enough of that. I think every city has potholes. She was talking about
She should see my street in Saskatoon. It's so bad.
I was going to say, and the thing about the Saskatoon is that university has a lot of brings an influx of young people that I think kind of gives it a little more of a jumping vibe or whatever.
Just a
opposed to
slightly bigger
Regina.
university with professional colleges, and it does change the vibe of the city. Yeah.
But for sure, I think that all those like those conveniences. I mean, once you are out of your, I think, early 20s, maybe late 20s if you're a big partier. Like after that, you want things to be convenient. You want all your amenities to be close. You want to be able to get stuff done, get your kids where they're going, or do whatever you got to do and get back to your place, which you should have a decent home by the time you get to your late 30s, 40s, and be able to relax and enjoy yourself instead of being on the road and stressed out and road rage and all that type of stuff that comes with being in a big city. Like I don't know. I remember when I was coming up in Columbus, it took 30 minutes to see anybody. You know what I mean? Just to go to the other corner of town. So to be here and to know that you can go, run all your errands in a couple hours is great to me.
Yeah. Heather, what do you think about the fact that, we've kind of kept the bar low? Is that a good thing, or do we have a bit of does Regina have a bit of a confidence issue?
Well, I think it's not Regina. I think that there's the national perception of Regina is filtered in a way that we don't control. So, for example, my husband and I, we watch the National pretty much every night. And it was a running joke for years that he would go, "Oh, there's a Regina story." And I jokingly say, "Is it about the arts?" And, it would be some terrible story, like, about, a racist incident or violence or, and so the only time we captured that national attention from the media was when something terrible happened. And so, as a community, I think our experience of our community is this is a lovely place to live. And I feel lucky. Like, I literally look at my husband every evening and go, we're so lucky we're living this life. We have a house. We own a home. We have a beautiful backyard. I have a studio space I can work in. I have friends who live in Toronto and they have to borrow a car and take, literally 3 or 4 hours to just go buy some art supplies. So I just think that, it's not our confidence problem. It's that sometimes when you're a quiet, small place, you only grab national attention in times of crisis.
Yeah. That's totally fair. Totally fair. Pat Fiacco, what do you think? Obviously, you came up with a whole campaign that ran from 2000 until 2012. I'm sure you still have the T-shirt that says "I love Regina" more than one.
Many of them.
Can I have one? I don't know what happened to mine.
I'll get you one. You betcha I will.
But what do you think? You really did try to boost our confidence. Did it work?
It did. I think it did. I think the feedback that I got, and I still get it today, where people, are angry that the I Love Regina piece was taken away from in front of City Hall. Although there is, I Love Regina Days coming up. Mayor Masters is continuing with that. By the way, Mayor Masters should bring on Zarka, Heather, and Wes, and yourself as I Love Regina ambassadors. You guys, you couldn't be promoting our community better than you are for all the reasons you are. And I don't think I agree. We don't have a confidence. We do not have that at all, or else people wouldn't be living here. I think what it is as I said before, it's sometimes easy to. Let's use the Riders. Wes, you're gonna really appreciate this. When the Riders lose a game, I'm telling you, Monday is the worst day of the week because everyone is talking about the damn game, and it's the end of the world. The Riders lost, but when they win a game, I'm telling you what, everybody is on cloud nine. Everyone's high-fiving each other.
All the businesses making money.
Yeah, it's amazing. But as soon as they lose, everybody feels that. And I think what happens with our community is, something negative happens. It's the first thing that they seem to gravitate to, rather than forgetting about all the things that everybody else has been talking about in the last hour. I remember with Premier Wall, we took the Think Regina campaign to Calgary and to Toronto because we were short employees. We had so many vacancies in the job, and we were going to go out and attract people, and we did very, very successfully. But even back then, I had people, hey, listen, why are you doing this? We don't want all these people moving to Regina. And I explained to them, no, we want to grow our tax base. This is a good thing. And all of those people that have moved here, they've talked about how it was the best thing they did for all the reasons that have already been spoken about today. I don't think I don't think it's a confidence problem at all. I think it's just I think it's easy to talk negative before it is to talk about positive.
You know, Regina's not the only city who has an issue with this kind of reputation. It actually makes me think of Ottawa. We've got some colleagues who do a local podcast called This is Ottawa, and they've got an episode about how they just can't shake this reputation that it's a city that's not fun. And part of it has to do with the fact that it's a federal government town. And so, you know, Regina's a government town. And so I guess we don't have a ton of time left, but to kind of try to shake that negative perception of Regina, we know it's a good place to raise a family. We know it's not a long commute. We know we have the Rough Riders. But beyond those obvious things, what's one last thing that you want people to know about Regina? You know, what it has to offer that could be a bigger part of Regina's identity? That's a big question. Heather, what do you think?
I think it's community, and I know that might sound kind of vague, and other cities have that, but I think people really have strong community in Regina. Like, they have it with their neighbors, we do. They have it with their community, like I do with the arts community, and they have it with the larger community and how we support each other and each other's events, like the Rough Riders or Mosaic. And, you know, there's a kindness about that kind of community feeling that is very special and wonderful to be a part of.
Nice. Wes, what about you?
Yeah, I think you can get everything you want out of Regina, and if it's not right in I mean, even if you're an outdoorsy person, you can go 30 minutes to an hour outside of Regina and get all your hiking and lakes, and I mean, you can even get a small ski hill in there. You know what I mean?
Of course you can. I mean, Mark McMorris is from Saskatchewan, so, you know, don't knock that.
I just think if you're really trying to be conscious about the way you're spending your dollars and saving up money to be in the community, but yet still have some money to go travel and see the world, not just spend it all in your city, like, Regina is a great place to be because it's not getting any cheaper anywhere, and I feel like Regina, I mean, by no means is cheap, but it's just nowhere near as expensive as the other places in Canada.
Pat Fiacco, what final words do you want to leave with us?
We have an amazing work-life balance. I think it all comes down to that work-life balance where, yes, of course, you know, we work, but man, we have the time and a community that you can have an amazing life besides work. For all those reasons that, again, we've been talking about. But the one thing that's wrapped all around this is we have a caring community. People do care about each other, no matter what. If there was something that's required, someone is there to help you. So regardless of what people say about us, you can't knock the fact that we're a caring community. We really care about each other.
Geez, you guys almost have me wanting to move back. Not quite.
You gotta throw Rider football in there too.
Well, yeah, right, obviously.
I was just you stole my hurrah. I was going to end it with "Go Riders, go!"
Yeah.
Well, this has been fun. It's given me lots to reflect on, and I think whether or not you're from Regina, this does speak to just how important it is to choose a place where you feel that sense of community. So, Heather Klein, thank you so much for being part of the show.
You're welcome. It was lovely to be a part of it.
And Wes Cates, thanks to you too.
Thanks, Leisha.
And Pat Fiacco, so good to talk to you today. Thank you.
I love Regina.
Love that. It's Pat Fiacco, former mayor of Regina. Of course, one of the people behind the I Love Regina campaign. Wes Cates, a former Rough Rider, and Heather Klein, a Regina artist. I'm Leisha Grabinsky. You've been listening to Blue Sky. Thanks so much for listening. We've got another great show coming up tomorrow, because in some ways it's not just Regina. Saskatchewan's got a bit of an issue. People often think they should just skip over the province. They don't like the drive, the Trans-Canada Highway. And so we're answering the question tomorrow, why is the #1 highway where it is? And how has that shaped people's perceptions of the province as a place that's flat and boring? And then we're going to challenge that by talking to people who've written a book about the most scenic drives in Saskatchewan. So join the conversation on the next Blue Sky right here on CBC Radio 1. Have a great afternoon.